Picture a tariff placed on foreign cars to protect domestic manufacturers. This added cost raises prices for imported vehicles, reduces their demand, and shifts some buyers to those domestic car options. But what happens to overall consumer welfare, government revenue, and market efficiency? In this video, we'll model the effects of tariffs using supply and demand, and explore how these trade barriers reshape markets.
We will model a tariff on foreign imports of steel to the United States of roughly $100 per ton. And so we're going to start with our supply and demand for U.S. and imported steel, just like we had in the previous video. There's no tariff on this yet. And so we have demand for domestically produced steel, demand for foreign produced steel, domestic supply of steel, and foreign supply of steel. This is an equilibrium where we have the equilibrium price is $700 for both types of steel, and we have those same numbers of 85 and 28 in terms of those quantities, like we did in the previous graph. So there's no tariffs now. A tariff is going to work just like a tax on an imported good. Sorry, a tariff is a tax on an imported good. It's going to act just like a tax on sellers, if you think back to our tax module. So like with any other tax, the imposition of a tariff is going to cause the supply curve to shift inward to the left by the amount of the tax. All right. So if our tariff is $100 per ton on foreign steel in this market, we need to shift up our supply curve here by $100. So let's say that's $100, and that's going to be the amount of the tariff. You can think that as a tax. And so if you do that for every single unit, we'll get foreign supply plus tariff. Like so. Right. Now we need to do the standard tax analysis. We'll find our equilibrium after the tariff by taking that foreign supply plus tariff, and where does it cross demand for foreign steel? And we come down, and let's say that our quantity is now 20 tons of steel. Now the prices. Right. So this price here will take our quantity, 20, after the tariff up to the original demand curve before that, and come on over. And let's say that that is a price of $760. And so that will be price buyers pay for foreign steel. Okay, $760. What do those foreign steel firms get to keep? Take that quantity of 20 up to the original supply curve and then come on over. And we'll say that this is $660. Okay, so some things we can already determine. Price to buyers, they're worse off. The price to buyers is going up from $700 to $760 for foreign steel. So all those buyers before, tariffs are going to cause prices to increase for foreign steel. Quantity for foreign steel goes down. So imports are going to go down. This is the other impact that I want you to get out of this tariff. Okay. All right, but this doesn't happen in a vacuum. So there's going to be some adjustments in the U.S. domestic steel market given this tariff. So buyers of steel, Ford Motor Company, United States, right? They're comparing, I was buying steel over here for $700, but now it's $760. So I'm going to start reducing my demand, right? We're losing some quantity here. So I need to go find that quantity of steel somewhere else. And so these are substitutes. U.S. produced steel, foreign steel. And so we know way back when from one of our first modules for demand, if the price of a substitute goes up, so the price of foreign steel is going up, right? And then what happens to our demand for the other thing? Well, people are going to switch from consuming foreign steel and wanting to consume more of domestic steel in this direction here. And that means that we will have an increase in demand. So I'm going to get my prices right here. Okay. This is our new demand curve after tariff. Right. So we're going to have the shift out to the right of our demand for U.S. produced steel. The reason for this as price of substitute has gone up. Right. That's just a shifter for a demand curve, so nothing fancy going on here. All right, so the story, prices of foreign steel goes up, people switch into U.S. steel. We model that as an increase in demand for U.S. produced steel, and that price of the substitute goes up. So what's going to happen to our new equilibrium price over here after the tariff? We get our new equilibrium price. That's going to be $760. That's the same price that's over here for foreign produced steel. And we'll get an increase in our quantity of U.S. produced steel. And let's say that this one goes to 89. So the impact of a tariff on U.S. produced steel, U.S. producers are not going to get a higher price for their product. But that also means Ford Motor Company and all the consumers have to pay higher prices for U.S. produced steel. And they're going to actually produce more steel in the U.S., so quantity goes up. Great. Okay. So let's go through these impacts again. Our first two that we modeled, prices for foreign steel goes up, quantity of foreign steel goes down. What's going on in our domestic market? Prices increase for U.S., let's just say domestic steel. Quantity of domestic steel increases. Okay. So a couple things going on. Our increase in domestic steel is going from 85 to 89. So we'll get an increase of 4 tons produced in the United States. Our decrease in quantity here is going from 28 to 20. And so we're going to lose 8 tons over there. So in net, U.S. consumers of steel are going to have a lower quantity. So in total, our on net quantity decreases. So consumers are paying higher prices and they get lower total quantities of steel that they consume. So that's bad for consumers. No matter which way you look at it, you impose a tariff on something, consumers are hurt. Consumers are going to pay higher prices for that product. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And consumers are hurt from every time you impose a tariff. So you might say, oh, well, this is going to hurt China. Let's say we impose steel tariffs on China. Oh, that's going to hurt China. Well, no, the big impact is going to be hurting U.S. consumers of steel. Okay. All right, other thing, final thing. Well, might somebody want to increase tariffs on some other country on this product, even though it's going to hurt consumers in their own country? Well, that's going to increase our U.S. production of steel. To increase U.S. production by 4 million tons, you're going to need to have more employees in the U.S. So an increase in the number of U.S. workers. So last thing here, U.S. employment in steel increases because of this. Okay. Great. So that's the basics of a tariff and how they're going to work in this model. Next, I want to show you just a little bit of history about the levels of tariffs and over time, over pretty much the entire course of U.S. history. And so what we want to focus on first is post World War II, we're having really low levels of tariffs. So roughly around 2010 to 2017, we're talking 5% level of tariffs in the green line. The green line here is going to be the dutiable imports. So these are going to be the imports that actually have tariffs on them. What's the average tariff? That's what this graph is measuring. The yellow line is total imports. So total imports, there's many imports that don't have tariffs on it, and so that line is lower. All right, so roughly in most of your lifetime, we're down here in 5%, 2% for total imports. So way back in the 1820s, 1830s, we had really high tariff rates, average tariff rates on most goods of 40 to 50%, up to 60% of the tariff of abominations. The reasoning for this is that the U.S. government didn't have a way of getting income taxes. So they needed to raise revenue somehow. It's really easy to check what goods are coming off of boats at all the ports in the United States. And like, well, you can't take your goods off your boat unless you pay your tariff your tariff revenue, right? And so the government could monitor imports relatively easily compared to like what they do today, right? Most of our taxes are income taxes, and there's a huge system of watching how much wages are paid to different people and like tracking them so that the government can actually make sure that you're not cheating on your taxes. They couldn't do that in a country where most people were farmers. Like their wages were not, most people were not working for wages in this time period. Most of them were farmers. It's very difficult to do an income tax. All right, it's tariff abominations because these were mainly on products that the North, like New England and New York, were products that they were producing. The South was exporting cotton, and so the South didn't like these things. The North did, and so the South termed them the tariff of abominations. Right. Then over time, they went down, but they still needed revenue. Then we get to the Civil War. Civil War, we needed some more revenue, and so the federal government increased tariffs to get that revenue. And then they stay pretty high for a long time. And then we get down to about 1900, and they start going down. We get to World War I, and then they go way up, and we get to the Great Depression, and we get Smoot-Hawley tariff. One of the causes of the Great Depression, one of these big tariffs that we had, up to like 60% for many agreements. Then after World War II, the U.S. decided, there's a big fight against communism. We want to get countries to come into our way of life, our system, our world system, and that system's going to be based on free trade. Okay. And so the U.S. started driving down our own tariffs and then convincing other countries to join our umbrella of defense. And if you want the U.S. to defend you against the communists, then you need to lower your tariffs as well and have this free trade going on. So pretty much the story past World War II was like lowering and lowering and lowering of tariffs to get more and more free trade. And that happened up until about 2017 when first Trump administration was imposing tariffs on China and a number of our allies. Biden continued those Chinese tariffs, and I'm going to talk in a later set of slides about that U.S.-China trade war in much more detail.